the federal government to stop the issuance of fish import license as it is inimical to the economic diversification policy of governments. The call was made Tuesday's plenary following a motion of urgent public importance on the matter. The lawmakers, while debating the motion from Representative Jonathan Gaza, expressed worry that fish importers have turned Nigeria into a dumping ground for fish and related products, some of which are below approved standard.
And Bayfair represent the people of Karu, Kefi Kokona Federal Constituency. I rise under Order 804 to bring a matter of urgent public importance, and I also request that the House suspend relevant rules to allow me to take it.
I rise to call the motion heavily moved by my honorable colleague. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion that the matter is urgent, say aye. Those against it, say nay. Ayes have it. Second motion that we suspend our rules to enable him to take it now. Honorable E.J. Aboima.
Good people of Ego-Ipobaha Federal Constituency, Edo State. Mr. Speaker, I rise to stand to support that all relevant rules be set aside for my friend, my brother, to take the urgent public importance. I so second, Mr. Speaker.
The need to investigate the recent issuance of licenses for fish importation into Nigeria. The House notes that in the last few years, Nigeria has gone through a recession and has resurfaced, and this recovery can be largely attributed to the diversification of our economy, especially in the field of agriculture. The House further notes that fisheries, which is an important subsector of Nigerian agriculture, with the country being rich in perennial rivers such as the Benue River, Niger, Ocean, etc., and lakes like Kayenji and other dams and ponds, and has also attracted a large influx of fish farmers using latest technology, has led to an increase in fish production and employment. The House is also aware that in the past, the Minister of State for Agriculture, during a meeting with the Ijebu Initiative on Poverty Reduction, in Abuja, sometimes in August 2017, stated that the federal government will stop issuing fish importation quota to importers, saying the venture was no longer sustainable. Also aware that frantic calls have been made by various quarters, including these hollow chambers, to ban the importation of fish into the country, as it has negative effect on our economy and also on our health, as we cannot ascertain the total health status of all the fish imported into the country all the time. The House is worried that even with pronouncements by the federal government to ban fish importation in a bid to encourage local producers to support federal government diversification policy, licenses are still given to importers who have turned Nigeria into a dumping ground for all manner of fish. The House is further worried that if this trend continues, the gains that have been recorded by local fish farmers and employment that have been created will be lost. The House is disturbed that fish importation is not sustainable, and if the federal government does not urgently look into the matter and rescind its policy on the issuance of licenses for fish importation, it will continue to bring about backward integration in the nation, with people not being able to set up fish farms or employ and create jobs. The House therefore resolves to set up another committee to investigate all licenses granted for fish importation within the last 1 year, request the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and the Bank of Agriculture to provide incentives to local fish farmers that will boost up production, and lastly, that the other committee concludes the assignment within 2 weeks and report back to the House for further legislative action. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Alexander Adekola, member representing Ekiti South Federal Constituency 1 of Ekiti State. I rise to second the motion, as ably moved by my friend, Honorable Jonathan Befi. I so second.
Owing to the fact that hardly do you have a country that goes through a recession and is able to rebound and come out strong, and this can be attributed to so many factors, which include the fact that our agricultural sector has been strengthened by way of policy. One of the things that makes an economy strong is when you ban importation and encourage local production, which will help your GDP at the end of the day. Now, this was taken, and fish production in Nigeria actually came up strong. We found out that from the traditional 1.2 to the traditional 7 to 800 metric tons of fish that was produced, within a year, Nigeria started producing about 1.5, an increase of about 800,000 metric tons of fish locally. And this, in fact, impacted positively on our economy and brought about employment. But, to our greatest dismay, statements that had been made by this government to see that fish importation comes to an end so that indeed our local farmers can be strengthened is being abused. What we have instead are licenses being issued and fish being poured into this country, thereby frustrating the local farmers. A typical example within the same agricultural sector is in the area of maize production. There was some sort of ban or restriction, and maize cultivation went very high. But a particular company was actually given the license to import maize. And what happened? Hundreds of metric tons were imported. Now, because of this excess influx, what happened to the cost of maize? And this is sometime in the year 2017 going into 2018. The cost of maize crashed from 14,000 naira a bag to about 7,000 a bag because these people just brought in their maize and dumped it on our market. And what happened to our local producers that produced maize that year? There was nowhere to offload the maize, even with our rich population. So, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I want us to look at this very critically and actually do an investigation. It is high time that this House takes the responsibility of charting the economic recovery path for sustainable economic recovery of this nation. We cannot leave it in the hands of anyone. We've been elected as leaders to represent our people from our various polling units to our various wards and our local governments and federal constituencies. The honor beholds on us to make sure we stand up to the challenge. And I believe this would definitely be a step in the right direction. Things that we can produce locally, there is no need importing them whatsoever. We should make sure, we should take steps that countries that were going through recessions took, close their borders, adequately, strategically, to make sure that we produce locally, look inwardly, live Nigerially, and make sure that our economy rebounds as it ought to. We are providing jobs and, above all, guaranteeing safe and healthy foods for our people to eat. On this note, I so move that the Honorable House kindly support this motion so that we can get the necessary intervention that is required. Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to speak this morning on this matter, though it looks very simple, but it goes to the heart of our economy. And because my interest has always been in agriculture, education, and science, any matter in this direction will attract my attention. Just about 1 month ago, I wanted to build a dam in one of my farm sites. That was the first time as an engineer that I discovered that the machine that will do that job for me is what we call the swan buggy in engineering. Swan buggy is a machine that can always work, in a watery environment or in the water. It does the job of an excavator, but it can only do that in the marshy area. And I discovered that in the whole of Nigeria, you have just 10 swan buggy located in Lagos, and it's mostly used by dredgers. Mr. Speaker, why is this very necessary? In a country of about, let me conservatively say we are 100 million people. Because I'm a mathematician, I want to be careful with figure. In a country of about 100 million people, for example, and with fish need of 4 million metric tons, and we are currently producing 1.2 million metric tons. So there's a shortfall of about 2.8 million metric tons. And the machines that are even going to be deployed, if you want to go into fish farming, particularly to start building your own dams, for 100 million people, In the whole of this country, you have just 10 of them located in Lagos. Then you begin to wonder, is it our policy that is wrong, or we don't even understand what we are trying to do? My answer is simple. We don't understand what we are doing. We only pretend to the outside world that we know what we are doing. Farming is capital intensive. There are so many farmers on this floor. Farming is capital intensive. If you go to US and UK, where the issue of subsidy started in those days, in 19th century, subsidy emanated from an attempt to support the farmers. Because the way we have handled farming in Nigeria can never, one, get us to the promised land of being able to feed ourselves. That's the first one. The second one is, I doubt if we'll be able to attain that height of being able to export any of our agricultural produce. Forget about the fact that yam are being taken to seaport for exportation. But do we have enough to eat back at our different houses? The answer is no. So I'm contributing this money for that first reason. The second reason is, it is painful, Mr. Speaker, that we have the kind of farmers we have in Nigeria. And you will know that when you go to commercial bank to want to take loan is taken at probably an interest rate of 22%. The BOI one or the Bank of Agriculture one is taken for 9%. Mr. Speaker, it's time to be corrected. Not even the gate of this world can convince me that anybody can take loan to do any business at all and make profit and be able to sustain a loan that is given at 10% interest rate. Not to talk about 22, not to talk about 28. Nowhere in the world you can take loan and do business and pay back and maintain the interest of 9%. So that is the second reason. The third one is, where are the policies to generate all these things that we are talking about? So I'm contributing because I feel pained that as a farmer, I can see them on my left-hand side here. Wasa is here. People who have job to do, those are the two security things. When you have them, it becomes easy to govern your country. When people are not hungry, when people have economic power, those are the two things that will safeguard anything. Atomic bomb, war machinery, those things do not guard against war. Those are the two major things: economic power and ability of a country to feed its populace. So, Mr. Speaker, I align with the removal of the motion, and I want to beg that those who are giving the licenses, as they are giving the licenses by the left hand, they should try as much as possible to write policy that will encourage farmers. You can't say completely that they should not give, but when they are giving the licenses with the left hand, they should write policies and follow it up. And let me finally say this before I go and sit down. In all the books I've read about economy, in all the books, and I start to be corrected, there is no country in the world where banks will revolutionize industrialization. No way. Banks do not do that. Banks are set up majorly to make profit. And so when you have a profit venture, you cannot be giving that loan at an interest rate of 2 or 1.5%, which is being done in other clients. What revolutionizes industrialization in any country is the deliberate effort of the government by way of having good policies and by making sure that every aspect of our life is subsidized. Not petroleum subsidy now. I'm not talking about petroleum subsidy. I'm talking particularly about agriculture, education, and science. Once you don't subsidize those three areas of our economy, we cannot develop. And agriculture is the most important, and agriculture should take the premier position In fact, agriculture should be subsidized as much as 60%. That is when we can have an inroad into what is called an economy. So our policy makers will cease to depend on banks. Banks cannot turn around anything. They can't. It's either they do round tripping, buy dollars and sell dollars and sell naira, because at the end of the day, the books are clear. They want to make their billions. So government must deliberately, by way of policy, by way of subsidy, and I want to clarify, subsidize agriculture, subsidize education. In fact, when you subsidize the two, you improve on your research capacity. And finally, science and tech. Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Mr. Speaker, I also want to align myself with the previous speaker and then the mover of the motion. But I want to start by saying that it is a recognition of the fact that there is need to have a good economy, that this government decided to dwell so much on the diversification of the economy by paying attention to agriculture. I want to say on record, Mr. Speaker, that this government decided to reduce or stop the importation of rice so that we can be able to boost production of rice locally. And that has actually improved. When you go to campus today, it is a very good example to realize that our farmers have not only boosted their economy, but farming, but even their income has actually increased. We have had records of this year that a lot of them have even approached banks and have been able to get loans. And apart from the issue of rice, I agree with him that just as we did with the issue of rice by banning importation, increase local production, there is also need to stop or reduce the issuance of licenses anyhow. Because the mover of the motion stated clearly that before it was, the licenses were abused, the production increased by 100% because we were having about 800 metric tons and it boosted to about 1.5 million metric tons. That means it has actually increased as a result of the activities of the farmers. But by issuing the licenses anyhow, now it has actually dropped. That means just the way we did with the agriculture, by stopping banning importation, increased local production, we should actually caution that those responsible for issuing these licenses not to just issue, because lots of people will just get it just to be dumping some of the fishes in our country. And we have had reports where we also have to be cautious that there are certain people that use this fish and dump into certain rivers for insurgents. I know that in Zamfara there was a case where fish were dumped in certain river, and most of the people that even ate that fish, a lot of them died as a result of that. So I think even those that are importing the fish, we should be sure of which kind of fish that has been imported in Nigeria. So, Mr. Speaker, I align myself with the mover of the motion that there should not indiscriminate issuance of licenses so as to boost the production of fish in Nigeria. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
I stand here to speak in favor of the motion ably raised by my friend, not because he's my friend, but because of the interest I have in the family and Nigeria. Why do we give something with right hand and at the same time taking it with left hand? It's like we are speaking from both sides of our mouth. We want self-sufficiency in food production. We are encouraging our young graduates, either secondary school or university or polytechnic graduates, to go into farming. And many of them use their life savings to go into fishing. At the end of the day, they don't have market because they cannot compete with people that are given license to go and import. Like my other colleague said, if that's the way we want to go, why do we ban the importation of rice? If we are talking that we need more than enough, we need about 4,000 or 4 metric tons of fish in Nigeria. Why can't we now give license to people to be importing cows because we need more meat? Why can't we give license to our people to be importing chicken? Why can't we give them license to be importing vegetable oil and importing palm oil? If we want to develop and want to cater for ourselves, it's better we ban it. We may suffer a bit. At the end of the day, Nigeria stand to gain. When the importation of rice was banned, you see the relationship that exists between Lagos and Kebbi in terms of rice production. The same thing will happen in the fishing industry. If that one is done, that will be better. You cannot expect my brother in the village that I've encouraged to go into farming with my life savings and has taken loan, and you now say some people will be given license to be importing fish. That is not okay. We are not helping the economy to grow. The best thing to do is complete banning of importation of fish and fishery items into this country. Within 1 year of ban, you will see Nigeria will be sufficiently producing enough fish for our people. In the light of this, I rise and I speak again to support the motion as ably moved by Honorable Gasa. I so move, sir. Support, sir.
Osa is my name. I represent the local Kwani Federal Constituency of Delta State. Mr. Speaker, I want to really adopt the submission of the Deputy Speaker of this great chamber. In adopting his submission, I want us to separate two things. One, are there a shortfall on the market needs of fish in this country? Now, do we have a national plan to fill in the gaps where there was a shortfall? I think those are issues for determination. And probably that's the reason why this motion is an investigative motion. So in discussing it, we should be sending a message to the committee that will be formed at the end of the day. One, if there are needs, because it's a needs factor. If the demand is greater than supply, if the demand of the fish is greater than supply, that means there's a shortfall somewhere. Do we need to fill the gap within a period of 5 years to be able to generate that style that can enable Nigerians to meet up with the fish demand of Nigeria? Because even when you are suggesting ban, you are suggesting ban for the local industry to thrive. If the local industry to thrive, we represent the masses. Are they going to suffer because the local industry wants to thrive? Those are questions for determination. So in considering this issue, and that's why I'm happy that the motion is an investigative motion, that the committee of the House will be able to unravel the total demand of our country and be able to spread it, say, in the next 5 years, with the current money that the federal government has earmarked through the CBN of 200 billion. Where is it going to? What kind of industry this 200 billion is going to? Is this money going to the fish industry? Is this money going to another manufacturing industry? The National Assembly should be able to interface. The National Assembly should be able to interface with the appropriate executive quarter to be able to do this national development planning in achieving these goals. Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues, I am in support of this motion because this motion will unravel a lot of issues. And to start with, policy formulation starts from the House. Because if the House is to interface and plan, I think whatever that is going to come out, outcome of this investigative motion, the House will be able to use it to plan. How do we plan? We say we are the power of the purse. The power of the purse, probably, if we want the agricultural sectors to grow well, this is what we earmark, and make sure that such policies are followed up. I think that's the complete issue, Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues. So I urge every member to support this motion. Since this motion, prayers is not talking about ban. Since this prayer is not also talking about exclusion in all sectors. This motion is talking that you want to investigate, unravel, and bring out the data that are necessary for policy formulation in this nation. So on this ground, Mr. Speaker, I wholeheartedly support this motion and urge honorable members to support this motion with the speed of light that is required. I so submit, Mr. Speaker.
Over the years, the fisheries subsector has been subjected to series of neglect by successive governments, because successive governments are giving priority more to animal and crop production compared to the fisheries subsector. As a result, there is huge deficit in our requirement, and then that brought about the need for importation. Yes, again, it is true that the Federal Ministry of Agriculture has issued licenses for the importation of fish into this country because in order to fill the gap in our requirement. But I want to also report to this Honorable House that steps are being taken to phase out completely fish importation within the next 2 years. And because of that, local production is being encouraged to beef up the local production so that eventually the importation of fish will be a thing of the past. So in the next 2 years, there is a deliberate policy that in the next 2 years, there will be no licenses issued for fish importation. And before that time, local production will have been beefed up to meet our domestic requirement. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I support this motion so that the circumstances leading to this importation of fish will be unraveled and then fish importation will be stopped. Thank you, sir.
In the course of your assignment, have you ever run into a demonstration fish farm by the Ministry of Agriculture?
Well, Mr. Speaker, honorable members, what I mean by, sorry, I was unable to explain the deliberate policy that was put in place for the purpose of meeting the local requirement. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, one of the problems is that we are unable to exploit our fish resources in our territorial waters. As a result, it is the Chinese and other foreigners that are coming to exploit it. The Nigerian Institute of Marine Research and Oceanography has acquired the necessary technology, trawlers, that will go deep for the purpose of exploitation of our fisheries resources in our territorial waters. And also, there is a deliberate policy of training and empowerment of our youth and women in aquaculture. Deliberate policy of training and empowerment of our youth and women in aquaculture. And I've even invited a lot of my colleagues to apply for that program so that their constituents will benefit in the training and empowerment of youth and women in aquaculture, whereby they will train them and also give them the necessary startup packs. These are some of the deliberate policies that were put in place now for the purpose of meeting of our local requirement in fish production. Mr. Speaker, if I've answered your question. What?
Okay.
The House requested the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and the Bank of Agriculture to make available incentives to local fish farmers to boost production and in view of additional advantage of job creation. An ad hoc committee is to be set up to investigate all licenses granted for fish importation within the last 1 year.
We move on to the first business of the day, which is presentation of report of the Ad Hoc Committee on the Establishment of National Assembly Legislative Museum and Archives. Standing in the name of Honorable Sam Onuibo, honorable members will recall that the matter was referred to the committee on Tuesday, 13 February 2018. The report is ready for presentation. Honorable Onuibo is now invited to present it.
I'm Honorable Joseph John Wele, representing Esan West, Esan Central, and Igwebel Federal Constituency. Another committee on the establishment of National Museum, Legislative Museum, and Archives. That the House do receive the report of the ad hoc committee on establishment of National Assembly Legislative Museum and Archives. I ask the Speaker to allow me to relay the report.
I ask that the bill for an act to repeal the Nigerian Postal Service Act, Cap 127, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and establish the Nigerian Postal Commission to make comprehensive provisions for the development of regulations of postal services and for related matters to read the third time. I so move.
Honorable colleagues, the question is that the bill be now read the third time. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it. Clerks invited to read the long title of the bill.
To repeal the Nigerian Postal Service Act, Cap N127, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and establish the Nigerian Postal Commission to make comprehensive provisions for the development and regulation of postal services and for related matters. Third reading.
Bill read the third time and passed. Second order of the day, honorable colleagues, the third reading of a bill for an act to repeal the Nigerian Law Reform Commission Act, Chapter N118, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and enact the Nigerian Law Reform Commission Bill to facilitate the effective implementation of the Commission's law reform proposals and enhance its performance. And for related matters, honorable members will recall that the House adopted the report of Committee of the Whole on the bill on Thursday, 11th April 2018. I therefore call on the Leader of the House to move that the bill be now read the third time.
N118, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and enact the Nigerian Law Reform Commission Bill to facilitate the effective implementation of the Commission's law reform proposals and enhance its performance. And for related matters, HB 1577 be read a third time. I so move.
Honorable colleagues, the question is that the bill be now read the third time. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it. Now invite the clerk to read the long title of the bill.
The Nigerian Law Reform Commission Act, Cap N118, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and now the Nigerian Law Reform Commission Bill to facilitate the effective implementation of the Commission's law reform proposals and enhance its performance and for later matters. Third reading.
Speaker, honorable colleagues, I rise to move that a bill for an act to establish the Council of the Regulation of Travel and Tour Management Companies of Nigeria, provide for the registration of persons who, by way of business, negotiate for or otherwise act in relation to selling of travel and tour services on behalf of the transport carriers to facilitate carriage by air, rail, or road of passengers and for the control, regulation, and orderly development of passenger travel distribution in Nigeria and for related matters, HB 1321 read a third time.
The Charter Institute of Auctioneers to provide for the control of its membership and to promote the practice of auctioneers in Nigeria and for matters connected therewith. Third reading.
Management Companies of Nigeria provide for the registration of persons who, by way of business, negotiate for or otherwise act in relation to selling of travel and tour services on behalf of transport carriers to facilitate carriage by air, rail, and road of passengers and for the control, regulation, and orderly development of passenger travel distribution in Nigeria and for related matters. Honorable members will recall that the House adopted the report of Committee of the Whole on the bill on Tuesday, 9th April 2018. I therefore call on the Leader of the House to move that the bill be now read the third time. I think there's a mistake. It's Tuesday, 9th April 2019, not 2018, please.
I rise to move for a bill for an act to establish the Council for the Regulation of Travel and Tour Management Companies of Nigeria, provide for the registration of persons who, by way of business, negotiate for or otherwise act in relation to selling of travel and tour services on behalf of it, transport carriers to facilitate carriage by air, rail, or road of passengers and for the control, regulation, and orderly development of passenger travel distribution in Nigeria and for related matters, HB 1321 be read a third time.
Act F17, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to establish the Federal Polytechnic Fagge, Kano State, to provide opportunities for technical education in furtherance of government economic objectives of ensuring an effective, dynamic, and
self-reliant economy and for related matters read the third time. I so move.
Honorable colleagues, the question is that the bill be now read the third time. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it. Clerk is invited to read the long title of the bill.
Amend the Federal Polytechnic Act, Chapter F17, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to establish the Federal Polytechnic Park in Kano State, to provide opportunities for technical education in furtherance of government economic objective of ensuring an effective, dynamic, and self-reliant economy, and for later matters. Third reading.
On this item number 7 on the act, on the bill, to bring an act to establish the Polytechnic Kaltungo, we discovered in my committee that there is no similar bill here. Rather, it's from another one in another part of Gombe State, which has been passed and sent to the Senate for concurrence. This one is a bill sponsored by Senator Lidani from the Senate, which is seeking the concurrence of the House. So since there's no similar bill, I don't think there's any impediment to us considering this bill. There's no conflict at all, Mr. Speaker. So I propose that we continue the second reading of the bill. I so, Mr. Speaker.
Like it was given to us in the preamble by the chairman, House Rules and Business, this is a very clear and straightforward bill coming from the Senate for the purpose of establishing Polytechnic in Kaltungo, and in order to increase and enhance our learning capacity for our children and those who are willing to acquire technical knowledge. It is important that we continuously, as a country, establish these kind of institutions so that we'll get to the promised land. Mr. Speaker, respected colleagues, I want to believe that by the number of those out of school children we have in Nigeria, no amount of institution shall put in place that for now shall be sufficient. And it is in light of that I beg my colleagues, respected members of this parliament, to allow this bill to be read the second time and so that you can see the light of the day. This is very important. It is for all those who could be proud of their own nation to have this institution established. Thank you very much, sir. These are my submissions.
In favor of the motion, say aye. Those against it, say nay. Ayes have it.
To read for an act to establish the National Institute for Educational Planning and Administration to provide, among other things, for its functions and other matters related to education planning and administration in Nigeria, and for related matters be read the third time. I so move.
Honorable colleagues, the question is that the bill be now read the third time. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it. Clerk is invited to read the long title of the bill.
Bill for now to establish the National Institute for Educational Planning and Administration to provide, among other things, for its functions under matters related to educational planning and administration in Nigeria and for related matters. Third reading.
Bill read the third time and passed.
In the meantime, 7 bills were passed at plenary. However, a bill for an act to establish the Chartered Institute of Forensic and Investigative Auditors of Nigeria couldn't scale second reading after extensive arguments for and against its passage.
The eighth order of the day is resumption of debate on the general principles of Bill for an Act to establish the Chartered Institute of Forensic and Investigative Auditors of Nigeria for effective regulation, registration of members, and determination of what knowledge and skills that a practitioner is required to attain in order to qualify to practice as a forensic and investigative auditor, and for related matters. Honorable members will recall that on Thursday, 11th April 2019, debate on the bill in relation to the application of forensic auditors in other jurisdictions. I take that again. Honorable members will recall that on Thursday, 11th April 2019, debate on the bill was adjourned, and a 3-man committee constituted to study the bill in relation to the application of forensic auditors in other jurisdictions and report to the House. And I invite Honorable Igaruwe Iduma Enwo to brief the House on the matter.
Mr. Speaker, as you rightly pointed out,
the general principles of this bill was debated on the 11th of April and adjourned to today for us to examine the provisions of the bill vis-à-vis the practice in other jurisdictions. Mr. Speaker, in the course of our work, we formulated 3 issues for resolution. The first issue is, do we have similar bodies that deal with forensic and investigative auditing in other jurisdictions? Mr. Speaker, the answer to this is in the affirmative. The profession of forensic auditors exists in some Commonwealth countries, such as the United Kingdom, Canada, Zimbabwe, Ghana, South Africa, and Australia. They also exist in other countries, such as the United States, Belgium, and Germany. So, Mr. Speaker, it's safe to say that this is global practice. The second issue we try to resolve is whether this institute of forensic auditors exists in other jurisdictions and whether they are affiliated to their national accounting bodies. Mr. Speaker, the answer is in the negative. We were able to establish a bifurcation between core accounting bodies and emerging forensic and investigative bodies. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, and perhaps the most important, is the legal status of forensic and investigative bodies in the various jurisdictions which we covered. Mr. Speaker, it is trite to state here that different countries have different approaches to legalizing, regulating, and certifying professional bodies, regardless of their nature. Mr. Speaker, in the United States and North America and European countries, the responsibility and power to enact laws for professional bodies belongs to specific agencies of government, not the national parliament. Thus, in the USA, for example, professional accounting bodies do not have enabling legislation, whereas in Nigeria, the power and responsibility lies with the National Assembly, as clearly spelled out in Section 4, Item 49 of the exclusive legislative list of the 1999 Constitution as amended. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, we came to the conclusion that it is generally agreed and compelling that there is a global determination to root out corruption and fraud. And this has led to the emergence of forensic and investigative bodies in many countries of the world. That said, the forensic and investigative bodies in other jurisdictions which form the subject of our investigation do not enjoy legislative flavor, but are registered with their national corporate affairs commissions or their equivalents. Mr. Speaker, that's the conclusion of the assignment we were given. I so submit. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
In between the distribution of the report about 10 minutes ago, I've taken time to read the report because I watched it on NTA Parliament yesterday, the debate on the forensic matter, and it was interesting. And I just decided within myself that when I get to the floor today, I'm going to see how it goes. Now, from that debate and from the report that was distributed some 10 minutes ago, there are so many lacunae there. And I will start by saying, I'm not biased, but I just want to state my side. One, let's define audit. Audit from this dictionary says an official inspection of an organization account, typically by an independent body. Audit can be expected to detect, can't be expected to detect fraud. So that can be one of the reasons why you need forensic examination. There is another definition of audit, which says a systematic review or assessment of something, a complete audit of something. So which means audit in this case, from the report, is that it does not refer to accounting alone. So agree, that's the first premise. That is established. But the second premise that I don't want us to fall into the hole is that you don't have to use the word audit in the context the bill is trying to use it. That is my ground. If you say forensic investigative accounting thing. That is correct. Let us find a way of having a bill. Mr. Speaker, this is important. The word audit in that particular bill will so malangu the accounting profession. No, don't. When I finish, you can. I support a bill that will do a forensic examination, because I remember in 2007, when we took our case to the tribunal in Osun governorship, we hired the services of a forensic expert, and that was the late memory of Adrian Forty. He was a forensic expert. Forensic is a profession that belongs to so many professions. Science. Yes, I didn't want to call the attention of the speaker because this thing is important. I want the debate to go on. So establish that. I want the fact that audit does not apply to accounting alone. That is established too. But what is confusing in that bill is that if you pass the way it is, audit in that context is in the context of the accountants. So what I want that bill to do at this stage is to find a way of having a separate bill on forensic investigation that will cover all other areas, not an arm of an accountant trying to set up a bill that will now do forensic accounting, which other professions might not be able to use. It can be synonymous. In this case, whatever public hearing that has been done on that particular bill must be with the involvement of scientists, technologists, engineers, accountants, lawyers. And I've made an example of when we went to governorship tribunal in 2007 in Osun, when we hired the services of a forensic expert. In that case, it was a foreigner, Adrian Forty, that came to testify on our behalf. And what did he do? It's just to examine the ballot papers, the serial number of the ballot papers, whether there were overvotings, whether the serial number conformed. And in fact, it was the first time as a politician that I got to know that each polling unit in Nigeria is attached with specific ballot paper numbers. And that is simply auditing. So in this case, Mr. Speaker, the debate can only go on if we remove auditing from it. You can call it forensic accounting. But when it is forensic in the global sense, all other professions must be involved. And that means there will be content of that bill that will refer to lawyers, engineers, technologists, and the rest of them, and even accountants. Or accountants can even come, the ICAN and ANA of this world can come and put a forensic accounting in their own amendment. It does not mean that forensic bill cannot still be done. It can be done. But the way it is being done now, the promoters of this bill are accountants. Mr. Speaker, the promoters of this bill as are today are accountants. And from this report, if you read through it, Mr. Speaker, I've read it. Outside the first page, that is trying to justify forensic auditing. All other pages were referring to forensic accounting. This report, the first page, and when you use the word financial forensic auditing interchangeably with forensic accounting, then there will be confusion. So that is the report you have read. If you are controverting what I'm just saying, you just let us know. But here, apart from the first page, that says forensic auditing exists somewhere. All other pages, about 4 pages, were mentioning forensic accounting. And so, Mr. Speaker, we can continue the debate, but we have to separate the word audit from the current bill. To either mean forensic accounting, or you have forensic auditing, where no other members of the House will controvert the fact that forensic auditing now will now refer to all other professions, according to the definition from the dictionary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Igarwe, is there a response? You have listened to him.
Let us find out what is happening in other jurisdictions. And we were able to find out that, yes, we have forensic institutions in other places, associations in other climes. And we stated both in Commonwealth countries, in the United States, in United Kingdom. Then we tried to find out whether they belong to accounting bodies of those different countries. And we found out clearly that there's a bifurcation. We have accounting bodies there, and then we have these forensic bodies existing differently. And the third step we took was to see whether in those other countries they have any parliamentary flavor. Are there products of their parliaments? Because that, I think, is at the core of the disputation we have. And what we found out is that they don't actually emanate from their parliaments. And that is because different countries have different systems. Like in the United States, even the accounting body, the equivalent of ICANN, is not a product of Congress. In the United States, not a product of Congress. There is an agency of government that has the duty of registering some of these associations. So that was what we were able to find out, that they are not actually children of the parliament in these other countries. So in our own case here, we have the power, if we want, as we stated, under Section 4 of our Constitution, or Item 49 of the exclusive legislative list, to say, yes, let this association become a product of parliament. We can do that. But as it stands now, that is not what obtains in other jurisdictions. So we try to limit ourselves to the reference we were given, which is to find out what is happening in other jurisdictions. Yes, Mr. Speaker.
I remain Uzoma Nkem Abonta. Mr. Speaker, I also want to thank the three-man panel for what they have done. Mr. Speaker, at the end of this debate last week, short of calling for a voting, you asked them to let us know the status of this proposed but the in-order claim. They had come out in affirmative, as against the who say it does not exist anywhere. Mr. Speaker, I do not know the report the Deputy Speaker said he read. I'm not aware that they had circulated their report. If they did, then it was restrictive. Have you circulated their report? I'm not aware. They are reading for the first time. What Deputy Speaker circulated probably was my own report, which I circulated. That's my submission, not from. Do I have the floor, sir? I have the floor. You're returning it to me. Thank you. So that's not their report. I tried to elucidate further things. Mr. Speaker, audit and auditing and investigation, they can say, can you investigate? Can you audit? They have similarities in accounting, in investigation, in all whatnot. Mr. Speaker, you are a lawyer. You know we have narrow interpretation and wider interpretation to give the true meaning and intent of any word. This is something we can use and also an interpretation clause to correct. Are we going to throw away this? The problem of Nigeria today is corruption. We all agree. And the focal point of this government is to reduce corruption to the barest minimum. Mr. Speaker, this body will start work where the accountant stops. Mr. Speaker, the other point is, if I say now only accountants or ICANN should be in charge of this, that means I cannot be a forensic investigator being a lawyer. But this body admits economists, sociologists, lawyers, and accountants. And it is fallacy to say, it's misleading to say that the promoters of this bill are purely accountants. Mr. Speaker, there are lawyers there. There are economists there. There are ICANN chartered members there. It's all encompassing. What we are saying is, when in other clients, for example, America, huge corporations started collapsing, based also on the report of audit reports. I may go to say, for example, Calvary in Nigeria is gone. But if you see the robust accounting reports, it's misleading. It misled. In reality,
their shares are worthless from what we see in the market, from the indices. Therefore, the global phenomenon came up now for forensic auditing, investigation to stop fraud. Mr. Speaker, accountants, ICANN as they be, cannot do fraud investigation per se. They look at the book. But this forensic body we are talking of now are fraud prevention experts, fraud detection experts. They use mechanism that is globally coming up to check, to monitor, to forestall fraud, where the accountants do not. We've done this debate past. The only mission we ask them to say is, does it exist in other areas? Mr. Speaker, in Nigeria, we have tailored the Constitution that Section 4 and 49 gives the Parliament the exclusive right to start people. So they can go to no other agency anywhere to ask for certification. If the people they train can have legal backing, can bring out their certificate, that means Parliament must justify them. They have no other body to go to. But in US, they can't approach Congress, they can't approach another person because it is not a function of Congress, it's a function of the agency. That is why the ICANN equivalent in US was not licensed by any parliament. They are the product of the agency. In US, you also have several accounting bodies. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask this question, and I want to challenge all the accountants here. What is ICANN avoiding? What is ICANN hiding? If you look at, I have the floor. If you look at, I may go to say, all the monumental fraud in Nigeria, there's an ICANN member accountant behind it. I stand to say, all the fraud in all the companies, all the monumental and huge fraud that are involved. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, we will only be doing Nigeria a whole lot of good. Honorable colleagues, we will only be doing Nigeria a whole lot of good if we allow this anti-fraud body to come up. This body that will prevent and forestall fraud in the system to come up. Mr. Speaker, it's interesting to know that in Zimbabwe and other countries, they even have in-government departments. I don't know if I'm communicating, sir. In honorable colleagues, even in Zimbabwe, in South Africa, even in government parastatals, they have a department of forensic audit and investigation, notwithstanding internal audit. So is Nigerian case going to be different? In any case, must we do something that exists elsewhere? Can we not start our own pattern that will help Nigeria? I want to beg of you, allow this bill to go through. We have had public hearing done by Senate, a robust one, and they looked at it and said, as it is in other climes, let it be Nigeria. Let it not look as if we are hiding something by stopping this body. The question to ask, Mr. Speaker, what are we going to lose if we allow this body? Nothing. What are we going to gain if we allow this body? A whole lot of. We'll cleanse Nigeria, we'll stop that. It's interesting to know that all the anti-corruption agencies are in support. The ministry are in support, short of an executive bill. So are we the one who is going to stop it? I therefore beg honorable colleagues to allow this to go through so that we can test the waters and see how we can reduce this devil that is worrying us to whatever. I want to beg ICANN persons that this will not take your job. This will not take, if your problem is auditing, well, at the final stage, we will know what to do. Therefore, we should allow this thing a safe passage that we don't seem to be the one fighting or trying to establish and institute corruption. We should wipe away the fertile ground for corruption. I beg of you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Sunday.
That the report, we have to consider the report of the Committee on National Planning and Economic Development on a bill for an act to repeal the National Council for Management Development Act, CAP 99, Law of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, and enact the Council for Management Development Bill and for related matters. So moved.
For related matters. Honorable members who recall the report was laid on Wednesday, 27 July 2018. Honorable Linus Okore will move for its consideration. Is Linus around? Okay.
My name is Mohamed Tahir Monguno. I represent Marte Monguno, Ganze Federal Constituency of Borno State. I stand for Honorable Linus Okore, being a member of the committee and also being a chairman of the main committee. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I hereby move that the House do consider the report of the Committee on Agricultural Colleges and Institutions on a bill for an act to establish university veterinary teaching hospitals, constitution of both etc. and for related matters, House Bill 568, and approve recommendations therein. I so move.
Honorable Jari Bagon Jarigbe. I represent the good people of Ogoja Ayala Federal Constituency and from Cross River State. I rise to move that the following bills be considered by the House. 1. That the House do consider the report of the Committee on Tertiary Education and Services on a bill for an act to establish Federal College of Education Special, Benin Kudu, Jigawa State, to provide full-time courses, teaching, instructions, and training in technology, applied science, arts, social science, humanities, and management, to establish College of Education, Technical, Ona, Akwa Ibom State, to provide full-time courses, teaching instructions, and training in technology, applied science, arts, social science, humanities, and management, and to provide for establishment of Federal College of Education, Lisam, Taraba State, for the purposes of providing qualitative education in science, arts, social sciences, and other technical knowledge, and for related matters, and approve the recommendations therein. 2, that the House do consider the report of the Committee on Tertiary Education and Services on a bill for an act to amend the University of Maiduguri Act, CAB U10 Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, to specify the minimum qualification of the chairman of the Governing Council, ownership of intellectual property, and to provide for pre-action notice to the University Authority and for related matters. That the House do consider the report of the Committee on Tertiary Education and Services on a bill for an act to amend the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University Bauchi Act Cap A1 Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004 to specify the minimum qualifications of the chairman of the Governing Council, ownership of intellectual property, and to provide for pre-action notice to the University Authority and for related matters. That the House do consider the report of the Committee on Tertiary Education and Services on a bill for an act to amend the Obafemi Awolowo University Transitional Provisions Act, Cap 02, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to specify the minimum qualification of the chairman of the Governing Council, ownership of intellectual property, and to provide for pre-action notice to the University Authority and for related matters, and approve the recommendations therein. And finally, that the House do consider the report of the Committee on Tertiary Education and Services on a bill for an act to amend the Federal Polytechnics Act, Cap F17 Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to establish the Federal Polytechnic, Malum Fashi, Katsina State, or promote a planned and balanced economic development sustainable by applied science, technology, and management courses, and to establish Federal Polytechnic, Koko, Delta State, to provide for equity and access to tertiary education in the country, make comprehensive provisions for its due management and administration, and for related matters, and approve the recommendations therein. I so move.
Those in favor of the motion, say aye. Those against it, say nay. Ayes have it. 15th order of the day is consideration of report of the Committee on Public Accounts and the annual report of the Auditor General of the Federation 2010. Honorable members recall the report was laid on Wednesday, 10th April 2019. Honorable O.K. Chinda will move for its consideration.
Job well done, because this is the very first time that, pursuant to our responsibility, this committee went backwards to 2010, as a matter of fact, to do this work. So they have done an exhaustive work. I have seen it. It's in about 3 volumes. But to tidy it up in a way and manner that it will be ready for the committee of the whole, they're asking for a little time. So may I ask that we step down concerning of this report? I so move.
Report step down by leave of the House. Bill for an act to repeal the Nigeria Postal Service Act, Chapter N127, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and establish the Nigeria Postal Commission to make comprehensive provisions for the development and regulation of postal services and for related matters, House Bill 1563. Honorable members that will comprise the committee includes Honorable Edward Gyang Pajok, who will serve as chairman, Honorable Bakar Lawal Garba, member, Honorable Akpan Emmanuel, member, Honorable Magaji Dao Aliu, member, Honorable Nkem Abonta Ozoma, member, Honorable Isiaka Ayokunle Ibrahim, member. These are the conferees. Honorable MT.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Members, I hereby second that the House
give it
to
to
the Committee of the Whole to consider the report.
To consider the report.
Seven reports were considered and adopted by the lawmakers as the Committee of the Whole.
Bill for an act to establish the Chartered Institute of Social Work Practitioners. This is one of the bills that was passed by the National Assembly and sent to Mr. President for his assent, but he declined assent and gave his reasons. One of the reasons was that the scope of the bill was not well captured. So this bill was referred to our legal department. We have looked at it again and are taking care of the President's no concern. So we're submitting this report for consideration. I so move.
Was declined assent initially, and I think the areas pointed to by the President have been worked upon, and that is what necessitated bringing it back. It has 35 clauses, so we go ahead and pass the clauses. Clause 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 34, 35. Explanatory memorandum. Schedule. Long title of the bill. The next report to be considered is actually a concurrence bill, a bill for an act to establish the Institute of Transport Administration of Nigeria. It's a concurrence bill, and so I will invite Chairman Rules and Business to speak to the report.
House of Representatives on a bill for an act to establish the Institute of Transport Administration in Nigeria. This bill, if passed, is charged with the responsibility of advancing the study, training, and practice of transport management and administration in Nigeria. So, as the chairman mentioned rightly, this is a concurrence bill. Public hearing was duly conducted in the Senate. We've gone through the bill, and we've recommended that this committee retains the provisions as contained in the bill. I so submit.
The next bill too is a concurrence bill, and it's a bill for now to establish the Project Development Agency, PRODA, Enugu, to conduct scientific, engineering, and technological research aimed at facilitating the domestication and industrialization of appropriate technology for socio-economic advancement of Nigeria and for related matters. Now I invite the Chairman's House Committee on Rules and Business to speak to the report.
A bill to establish the Projects Development Agency, PRODA, which is located in Enugu, to conduct scientific, engineering, and technological research aimed at facilitating the domestication and industrialization of appropriate technology for socio-economic advancement of Nigeria. Mr. Chairman, I think this is already an existing institution, but it does not have legal or legislative backing. So if we pass this bill and it's assented to, then it will now enjoy the legal backing, and then it will have its own legal personality. Before we pass it, sir, I would amend just a slight thing in clause 1 when we get to it. Section 2, it says the provisions of the bill is to the effect that in 2A that the agency shall be a corporate body. Proposed to amend it to be in line with the language of the law, which is that it should be a body, no corporate. I don't want this bill to be
46 clauses with a schedule and explanatory memorandum, and it's accordingly passed. House Committee on National Planning and Economic Development, and it's a bill for now to establish the Institute of Transport Administration of Nigeria, chartered. Am I correct? Okay, my reports were not properly arranged. Is that of the House Committee on National Planning and Economic Development, and it's a report of the House Committee on National Planning and Economic on a bill and act to repeal the Nigeria Council for Management Development Act, Chapter N, 99 Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, and enact the Nigerian Council for Management Development and for other related matters, House Bill 461. And I invite the Chairman House Committee to speak to the report. The Chairman House Committee is represented here by Honorable John Wille. So 2 minutes, speak to the report.
The Honorable House will recall that the House, at a sitting on Tuesday, 12th of July, 2017, debated on a bill for an act to repeal the National Council for Management Development Act, number 99, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2014, and to enact a National Council for Management Development Act, 2016, and for other related matters. The bill is made up of 7 parts, 25 clauses, and supplementary provisions relating to the schedule made up of 19 clauses. Clauses that are retained without amendment, clauses are 6, 8, 20, 21, 22. Clauses that are retained with amendment are clauses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 10, and 11. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 23. Interpretation, the citations, and some other parts of the supplementary provisions, as well as the explanatory notes. Clauses that are retained with amendments and insertions of new subsections or paragraphs, while the subsequent numbers were renumbered are clauses 2 and 3, 16H and I, and 24. Clauses that are retained with amendments with some parts of the clauses deleted are clauses 2, 1, 3, 4, 6, and 8. Recommendations, sir. In view of the foregoing and consideration, considering the unanimous report the bill received at the public hearing, with just only one dissenting voice, the committee hereby recommends that the attached recommendations be considered, approved, and passed into law in order to enact the National Center for Management Development. The passage of this bill will not only improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the government and private organizations alike, but will also ensure quality and effective management of public and private businesses and resources, create and enhance job opportunities for our teeming youths and graduates, hence socio-economic growth and development of Nigeria. In this regard, I urge you all to support and give an expeditious passage of this bill into law for onward transmission to the Senate for concurrence, as time is of essence. Thank you, Mr.
5 clauses with a schedule, explanatory memorandum. So clause 1, clause 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 25. Schedule, explanatory memorandum, long title of the bill. Sorry for calling the schedule before explanatory memorandum. Rearrange. It will be presented by Chairman House Committee on Agric and Agri-Production and Services on a report on a bill for an act to establish veterinary teaching hospital of universities and veterinary specialist hospitals and for related matters. Am I correct? Veterinary teaching hospitals of universities and veterinary. Honorable MT. So speak to the report.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, honorable members, what this bill essentially seeks to do is to give legal framework because the veterinary teaching hospitals are already in existence in most of our universities. So it's already there. What this bill seeks to do is to give them legal framework for them to properly exist and also carry out their mandate with full force of the law to enable them back and bite in the discharge of their statutory duty. So it's an establishment bill because they are already in existence. We are just trying to do the needful as per Section 4 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. Thank you.
I say advances on course of learning in the course of discipline of veterinary. Say, for instance, Abu Zaria, I'm giving an example, should establish their own institution based on peculiarity and other things. Are we going to have one omnibus law for the entire institutions in the country? I don't understand, sir.
Being taught in the university, there's going to be a specialized hospital for veterinary matters. That is the title of the bill. In each university, you have a hospital for veterinary matters, like you have teaching hospital for human medicine. So you will have a teaching hospital for veterinary matters in each university. That is the implication of the title. That's the implication of the title. So it's an act to establish veterinary teaching hospitals of universities and veterinary specialists constitutional. So that is and that it goes further to show too that those hospitals will have their own board. as they have board for teaching hospital in our university. So the title is well expressive.
Having, say for instance, if you are going to have one in Birnin Kebbi, you should say this Birnin Kebbi. Because the condition of service and then the operation atmosphere may not be the same with the one we are going to have in Umuleri or the one you will have in Lagos. There are variables that will come that will be different. I don't know whether that's the right procedure and approach.
Before I call MT, once you pass this particular bill into an act, it will now apply to all federal universities. So any further question, when you ask, MT will now clarify. But that is what it means, this bill. But the question now is, which we now ask MT, that can we make one omnibus law to cover all the federal universities? So that's the question you are trying to ask. So let him answer. Okay.
You see, the condition of service take care of the entirety of what they are supposed to do. If it is a detachment of that particular system, of course, you have to create, just like we are now doing every day in terms of increasing the various universities. You now come to the floor, I want to establish university in my own community. We pass it, it goes through the second, third reading, and if it is deemed to be accepted, fine. But when you want to have something like this that is going to be all-encompassing, I don't know. There may be conflict of interest between even the institutions that are maybe the parent institutions, because are you going to now detach ABUT University, those who are offering undergraduate from the postgraduate? How are you going to deal with the issue of discipline or staff promotion and the rest? Because the condition of service will be peculiar to that of that particular institution.
At the second reading of this bill, should have noticed this and raised it, whether we can have our Omnibus Act that will now apply to all universities, particularly those owned by the federal government. MT, although we are still going to go ahead because his consideration cannot be arrested. So
yes, sir. But given answer to the question that he asked, the conditions of service is similar to all the teaching hospitals in universities that have faculty of veterinary medicine. They are all the same because they are public universities owned by the federal government, and therefore all the conditions of service are similar. There will be no conflict of interest. And as such, an omnibus law like that can apply. Thank you.
Where you have obviously seen the difference in the act governing their system, are there instances, at least for the purpose of education?
The only act that I know that is omnibus in terms of the entirety of the institution is, one, the duties of principal officers, the schedule of principal officers. These are the ones that you found that under the 1992 Act, that was the last one that was done, and then later on passed through the parliament. Any other thing is peculiar to that particular institution, sir.
Well, if you say that, before I will call Pajo too, if you say that, it has always been, I'm just doing this for the purpose of education. So, Pajo, has there been a particular...
Maybe we're doing some other duties. But, sir, I want to draw, in answering your question, I want to draw an analogy between this bill and what happens or what obtains in the establishment of universities generally in the country. Each university, sir, is established by a specific act. There is no omnibus law setting up all the universities in Nigeria. That's why day in, day out, even the executive itself, when they want to establish a university, they will come to the parliament to give them the power so that we give them legislative backing. So, though you have said, and we are drawing an analogy again from the judicial system where courts say that you may not arrest a judgment. But, sir, you also know, as someone who has been in courts and the tribunals, that even at this stage, fundamental issues of jurisdiction can be raised in courts. So even this one now, too, we can raise this issue so that we don't take one step backwards and one step forward and 5 steps backwards. I think we should step down this bill look at it again so that we do not say we are only in a hurry not to fulfill all righteousness, only for the president to go and say, I am declining assent because we have not done the right thing. I think it is very, very fundamental, sir.
Advising us to err on the path of caution than to go ahead and do something that can easily be questioned. So this report is hereby stepped down for further legislative studies.
And this is where we come to the end of the program. We thank you for your time. Do stay tuned and join us same time next week for another package.